YouTube is loading.
It says we are now streaming live on YouTube.
Okay, as I are muted. Yep. Okay, good. You are now live.
All right, well, let me call this meeting to order at 5:06 on Monday, February 8th, 2021. Robin, can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Kong,
Here.
Councilmember Garcia,
Mr. Garcia is here, but he had to step away for a moment.
Councilmember Ellis.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz,
Here.
Mayor Mahovey.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, public comment. Notice to the public, this time is set aside to receive public comment on matters not calendared on the agenda. When recognized, please state your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to under 3 minutes. Under California law, we are prohibited from generally discussion or taking action on items not included in the agenda. However, we may briefly respond to questions or comments from a member of the public. Therefore, the council will listen to public comment, but generally not act on it. Robin, do we have any public comment?
No public comments received in the public comment email, and I do not see any raised hands.
Okay, then we are now going to move on to closed session. We have 2 items in our closed session. We have a conference with legal counsel on anticipated litigation and a public employee performance evaluation of the city administrator. So we'll see you back in an hour.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. We are running a little behind schedule. I just heard from legal, so if you'll be patient, hopefully in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Thank you. For those of you who just joined us, thank you again for joining us for tonight's meeting. Council is running a little bit longer in closed session, so please continue to hold and join us. Thank you. Thank you again for everyone joining us this evening for tonight's council meeting. Council is still in closed session, so if you'll continue to hold on and join us, we appreciate it. We're hoping they'll be wrapping it up soon. Thank you.
right, are we all here yet?
Robin, can you hear me?
Yes.
So we did not finish closed session, so there's no adjournment, no report out, and we'll need to reconvene into closed session once we adjourn open session.
Okay. Right now you guys are live on YouTube. Mics are on. And we're zooming Granicus. And is everyone back?
No, we're missing Jim and Jose.
Oh, okay. Once they're back, I'll go ahead and continue recording on Zoom.
And apologies to our guests and all the members of the public that are anxiously awaiting this meeting to start. But we kind of ran over on time on some business, so.
I just added Jose.
Great. No. Please let us know when Jim joins.
I just forwarded the invitation to him.
Jim says to start without him because his internet needs to be reset. So is that all right, Robin? Okay, shall we begin? All right, then I'm gonna open the session at 6:22 for Monday, February 8, 2021 meeting of the City Council. Our invocation today will be done by Pastor Rick Klug. And so we'll ask you to stand for that, and then please remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance, which is meant to be by Jim, but we'll have Council or Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz do it.
Thank you, Mayor Stephen. Mayor Mahovey. Join me in prayer, please. Gracious Heavenly Father, God, thank you for the work that these servants do, especially the hard work done in closed session, which often is really difficult. We ask your blessing, your wisdom, your guidance on them in the hard work of leading the city. God, we pray for unity. We pray for a spirit of working together. There's so much division in our world right now, and we find so many things to fight over. Help us to seek out where we can be together and fight together against the pandemic and against anger and hate and all of that. Again, I ask your blessing and your goodness to fill each person as they lead in this city, and I am thankful for them. I'm thankful to you. We pray this together in Jesus' name. Amen.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
you. Robin, could we have a roll call, please?
You're muted, Robin.
You're muted, Robin.
Councilmember Kong,
Here.
Councilmember Garcia,
Here.
Councilmember Ellis, not quite with us yet. We'll note when he joins us. Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz,
Here.
Mayor Mahovey.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, public comment. This time is set aside to receive public comment on matters not calendared on the agenda. When recognized, please state your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Under California law, the City Council is prohibited from generally discussing or taking action on items not included in the agenda. However, we may briefly respond to comments or questions from members of the public. Therefore, we will listen to all public comment, but we'll generally not discuss matter or take action on it. Robin, have we had any public comment?
No public comments on our public comments email. I do not see any raised hands. Jenny, can you confirm?
There are no raised hands.
Thank you.
Okay, report on actions taken in closed session. Our closed session, I'm going to apologize for our open meeting starting late, but our closed session has not yet concluded. So we will go back to it afterwards and after our open session's done, and then report on actions at that time. Presentations. Inyo County new building update presented by Inyo County Public Works Director Mike Arante, and Robin, Councilmember Ellis joined us at 6:26.
Thank you so much. Duly noted.
Do we have Mike on? Yep.
Yes, I just added him.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Welcome. Yeah, we
Oh.
can hear you just fine.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you for inviting me to come in and provide an update. We are getting close to finishing the building there, our consolidated office building. I received an updated schedule last week, and the contractor is indicating that by mid-March, they're ready to turn over the building to the county. There'll be several things that they're working on right now. Landscaping scheduled to start next week. Then the milestone is the elevator that needs to be done in the middle of February and scheduled to be final inspection middle of March. With that said, our goal is to have all our county employees in by the end of April 30th. So moving backwards from there, we have some logistics to do to start staging the various offices to vacate and start moving in. And of course, that's predicated by the schedule and doing it logically. When the flooring comes in, we can start moving furnishings, and then our furniture vendor will deliver and construct our furniture between mid-March and early April. And then we can start actually moving the offices of various departments in. We have given notice to our landlords of the various locations that we lease from, that our intent is to be vacated from all the facilities by April 30th. That's pretty much the update. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Karen.
Michael, thanks for the update. I really appreciate it. At one point, you were talking about keeping the South Street Public Health building as storage. Is that still the plan, or what are you doing about that property?
Yes, that is the plan. Our employees will be vacating that building. So that was the plan to use it as overflow for some of the materials or some of the furnishings that are still salvageable, or files that we can't fit in the new building. So yes, that is the plan.
Okay, and that plan is sort of a temporary thing, or more of a long-term thought process?
In the short term, probably temporary until we figure out really how much we need to store. Sometimes, you know how we tend to store things that we really never wanted, and then we end up throwing them away later. So the goal is to give us time to sort through these items, and then we can see what the next use of that facility could be.
Thank you.
What kind of landscaping do you guys plan on doing?
I knew I was going to be asked that. I haven't done a quick check on the landscaping lately. I did get a chance to talk to Elaine Kabala, and I think she had a chance to look at it. Not to put her on the spot here, and it was, I think, blessed by the department, if I'm not mistaken. But there's various trees, plant type. I know that they're going to use cypresses up against the building, so you get long vertical greenery quickly. So I know that's one of them, but I'm not that familiar with the rest of the vegetation at this time.
Wow, that's a pretty fast timescale to get everybody in by the end of April, eh?
It is. It's a time crunch, but or hopefully that we have enough people moving in one direction, we get this done. So it is going to be a task, but I think we can get it done by the end of April.
Have people been touring the inside?
Yes, we have. I've done sporadic tours on with various personnel, and then this week on Wednesday, we're actually going to take everybody from the first floor, come in, take a look at your space, and then the following hour we'll do the second floor, so everybody gets a good feeling of what they're going to be moving into. And again, we can start doing kind of a inventory of what is expected to be moved, what can fit. We are purchasing all new furnishings, and that's we're going to be delivered in the middle of March. But there's a lot of filing cabinets that we tend to store a lot. So I'm impressing upon, let's throw away what we don't need, shred what we don't need, and scan what we can. So, but we are going to be doing tours, and it's a nice building. You're welcome to come take a look if you ever want to take a look at it. So.
I guess the only question I have is with regards to, I guess Councilwoman Kong brought this up with regards to the place on South Street. I know the city of Bishop currently has a moratorium on storage within city limits. How does that work in? Are you guys just claiming rank?
Temporary was the, I guess was the word. But I'll definitely look into what this moratorium is and make sure that we don't go against any of your moratoriums.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Mike on the
So
new
what time
building?
on Wednesday can we go?
Well, thank you for that. If there are no other questions from anybody? Nope. Thanks, Mike, for joining us and filling us in about that.
It was a pleasure.
Okay, all right, moving on to the Bishop Union High School student update. We have the Bishop Union High School Associate Student Body Representative. I believe this is going to be Karen Rivas. Is that correct?
Yes. Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Karen Rivas, and I am the freshman class president. As of now, ASB is closely following the safety regulations that are in place for COVID-19 at this time. We have had to be extremely creative with all of our endeavors this year by utilizing social media platforms, BUHS's online site, emails, etc., which has helped us reach a larger target audience. We have also been able to partner up with multiple groups around campus through virtual events. ASB is pleased to report that we are going to be partnered up with BUHS's teaching staff in hosting virtual trivia events. We are still discussing the logistics of these trivia events, such as deciding which days will work best for everyone, but we are aiming for Tuesdays or Thursdays. After discussion, we felt that homeroom would be the best to host our virtual trivia events because students would not have interruptions in learning. Other virtual events are still in the works as of this time, but we are hoping to have more information to come at the next City Council meeting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from the council? Nope. Thanks very much, Karen, for. Whoa, Joe, mute. Joe. Thank you. Sorry about that. Moving on to the Bishop Union High School Senate representative. I believe this is Melina Toomey. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Melina Toomey, and I am the chairperson for the Student Senate. Once again, thank you to the City Council for providing the Student Senate the time for our report during these meetings. I would like to open by reading the Senate's mission statement. Bishop High School Student Senate is a form of student government dedicated to receiving and projecting the student body voice to the community and the Bishop Unified School District through the following: promoting student interests, needs, and welfare, acting as an intermediary between staff, administration, board, and students, and serving our community and school with integrity and passion. We are committed to serving all of our students regardless of the individual differences, including but not limited to age, cultural background, disability, ethnicity, domestic situation, gender presentation, immigration status, race, religion, sex, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic status. And I'll go into our reports. After our school's winter break, we began sending out our weekly surveys again to the students and have been sharing the results back to the student body and also with our administration so we can move forward with plans to help with mental health based on those responses. The Student Senate is also working on how to keep students connected, especially as the school is distance learning. The Student Senate is dedicated to ensuring that the student body remains connected. We haven't worked out all the details yet, but we are planning a scavenger hunt, socially distanced scavenger hunt type thing. So that's pretty exciting, just to get kids out of the house, away from the screens. And we recently met with our administration and guidance office to discuss new plans and ideas. And I'll be very excited to share those with you, hopefully next meeting once we get those all ironed out. Additionally, the Student Senate's next open panel meeting is February 10th at 6, so this Wednesday, being held through Zoom, and you can find that link on our school's weekly bulletin. Thank you for your time and have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks very much for that update. I'm glad to hear your mission statement. It definitely evokes a lot of our value statement that the City of Bishop passed a few years back. So glad to hear it. Any other questions or comments from the council? No. Thanks so much for taking the time. All right, department reports. Let's start out with Fire Chief Joe Dell. Okay, let's mute Fire Chief Joe Dell until he handles his issues with sound, and we'll move on to Acting Police Chief Josh Ellsworth for the time being.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Just a couple things. Last week, you might have seen the press release where the officers were conducting some extra patrol in the 300 block of East Pine Street. They located a suspicious vehicle that was occupied. During the investigation, they learned that the vehicle was stolen out of Los Angeles County. The officers contacted the subject and ultimately arrested him for being in possession of the stolen vehicle. The following day, they observed the vehicle, minor traffic violation, stopped the vehicle in 100 block of Clark Street. They found that the license plate on the vehicle did not belong to that vehicle through the investigation, and learned that that car too was stolen out of Los Angeles County. The driver and the passenger in that vehicle were arrested for being in possession of the stolen vehicle, as well as some narcotics violations, and they were booked into county jail too. This weekend was kind of busy. One of the notable events was, I believe it was Thursday evening, and then some more on Friday, started a check fraud case. Some local businesses had some fraudulent checks passed at their places, and on Saturday, one of those same victims had the same subjects come to their business trying to pass a check again. The officers made contact, were able to detain them, found some more fraudulent checks, and tied them into several different cases. They too were arrested and booked into county jail for check fraud, as well as some narcotic violations. So busy last few days, as well as all the other calls for service, but everyone's taking care of what they need to do, and it's running smoothly. Any questions for me?
Karen?
Josh, how is the East 2nd Street speeding issue going?
It seems to be going well. There were some citations issued, and have not received any other complaints. They're still focusing on extra patrol in the area, but haven't received any the volume of traffic issues that we had before.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Hope it
Thank you.
calms down a little bit out there. All right, Public Works Director Destin Deshawn.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. A few things to report tonight. First off is, we were busy with snow removal, and want to give kind of a shout out to all the guys. We're a pretty short crew nowadays, and they've made good work of 3 guys on it in the daylight hours and 2 at night. And we're very successful, and actually pretty much had the snow gone by the weekend off the streets. So we saved ourselves a lot of extra worrying about ice and the following days when it got cold after that. The North Sierra Highway Waterline Project is somewhat started. The fence on the west side of the B drain has been built, just waiting on gates to be finished up. That'll keep away those cow people interactions that happen on the path, and also keep the cows off the highway, just make it a much safer spot for everybody. That large cottonwood tree that's right next to the path is slated for removal sometime next week. They should start. That's a very unhealthy tree. It's at the end of its life, and we spent a lot of time cleaning up broken branches, complaints about big branches hanging up in the top of it, the little that are left on it. So, and as well, that water line will go right through that tree when it's time to go. It's right in the alignment of the new water line. Caltrans has a project that I wanted to make you all aware of, and I think I talked a little bit last council meeting. Have some more details now. They're going to be doing some dig outs in the wheel paths on Main Street where they're having failures in the asphalt. They plan to start work hopefully as soon as the asphalt plant could open, but they also have a different kind of contract than us. So they give contractors options of when they can do it to make the price less expensive. So they're asking me, and I just wanted to bring it to you all's attention, that there's a possibility that they could do this at night to make this go much faster during the weekdays and less inconvenience on the traveling public and the businesses downtown. They know we have a noise ordinance. The mechanism to allow for this type of work would be through an encroachment permit if council feels that that's all right with them. And they also would be more than happy to come give a presentation on their project. I think that it probably doesn't warrant it because it's just they dig out of the wheel paths, no sidewalks, no a moving closure. I think that I'm able to do justice to their project tonight. So if anybody has any issues with that, I can bring it to another council meeting and we can talk about it more formally. Another thing we're moving towards with Caltrans is they had a meeting early last week and talked about the issues with trucks and parking, trash, and restrooms throughout the entire state, much like we're seeing at the Highway 6Y Road intersection area. So I had started the conversations a few weeks ago about the potential of maybe some portable restrooms in that area. Caltrans has started last week the process of a co-op where they will pay 2/3 of the cost if another government agency or 2 or 3 partner in with them. I've got right now, I'm not going to speak for the county. I think they're going to buy in, and LEDWP as well. And so I'll bring it back at a future time, but it'd be a minimal cost to probably put 4 restrooms in that area, 2 on both sides, one on each side, ADA accessible as well, which is great news. I think that'll help a lot down there too. And And the last one I think is great news with Caltrans. I've been working a lot with them. We developed an encroachment permit for all of the downtown corridor to now do business on the state right away on the sidewalk. So not just individual restaurants. We talked through it and we said, why don't we just make it for everybody can do it? We manage it. They still need to come to us and tell us we're gonna do it. But what a great idea to be able to let all the businesses, even a business could do something out on that street. Prior, the emergency declaration only allowed for people to sit at a table out there. Now they can actually do transactions, serve the food out there. So it's really opened it up for our businesses. And I think it's something that'll be great for the future. But other than that, that's probably enough of me, unless you have any questions of me.
Is this a long-term opportunity, or is it just during the emergency of COVID?
So right now it is just during the emergency of COVID, but they're taking the opportunity to assess to see how it's going to work and if it will work, because we do have the opportunity with the widths of sidewalk up there to have this possibly forever. And they've been very in favor of doing this. So I think if everybody works together, this could be something that we could see for the long term.
Highlight of COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
Destin, where is this, these dig outs taking place on Main Street? You didn't say specifically where.
I'm sorry. So it'll start roughly around Denny's, McIver right there. And then they'll be just off and on throughout north and southbound all the way down to South Street. So they'll work in like a northbound fashion, and they'll essentially be grinding and paving right behind the grinder. And as soon as the asphalt's cool enough to put traffic on it, they'll open it back up. So it'll be a very quick moving. The whole project is from Little Lake to Bishop and I shouldn't say all the highway, but a lot of work down there. And it's a total of a 2-week project for all the locations.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Destin, just one quick question on the waterline project. So that cottonwood is being removed, and as somebody who bikes down that path, I know that it is very irregular around that cottonwood with all the roots growing through it. Are we going to take the opportunity to kind of smooth that out to make it a more pleasant experience for the bikers?
Absolutely. You know, one is that for sure. The only way to correctly do it is remove all those roots. So we'll have the ability to pay, cost some extra money, but we'll do patching that's needed to do, as well as construction. We'll probably tear up parts of it too. So we're going to take the opportunity while we're there to fix anything that's bad down there, and a more permanent fix than just cold mix patch.
Sounds great. Cool.
Destin,
Any other?
thank you.
Yeah, go for it.
Destin, quick thank you for all the work with Caltrans and opening up those doors and the conversation. So it's good to see that we're having conversations, that they're receptive to it, and we're all moving forward with it. So thank you. Good job.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure to work with them and get those relationships.
And I have kind of a procedural question. I know that we all received a public feedback about the North Sierra Highway water line. Is it appropriate for some of us to maybe reach out, or one of us, or Ron or Destin, to reach out to the writers of this letter and just assure them of what's actually going on?
I'm sorry, Councilperson Kong, which letter is that? Maybe I missed, didn't hear you.
There was a public feedback letter that came on the 5th of February from that Michelle got.
Oh, yes. I've actually been reaching out to them quite a bit today.
Great,
working
wonderful.
Through that, making, clarifying the processes that we went through and all that to get there.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Thanks, Destin. Let's go try it again. Fire Chief Joe Dell. No, we're fine. Wait. Go on. Oh, except we can actually hear you. And there's a little bit of feedback. And all right, we'll test it again since he has an item in new business that he's going to be trying to talk a lot about. I just hope he gets it sorted out. Community Services Manager Dan McElroy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just an update from Community Services tonight. We started prepping for spring and summer, and our planning is in full swing at this time. Brittany and Waylon are working on summer camps and are locking down dates for each individual camp. With that, our numbers in our after-school program and KIND program stay strong, and KIND is full and still has a waiting list, so that's good. We are also prepping for seasonal help at the City Park Pool and for park helpers this summer. With that, we're creating schedules for events and for swim team at the City Park Pool. Carrie has been assisting Robin with the CPP plan, which is the Coronavirus Prevention Plan, and is also working to get gymnastics back and going when the time is ready. With that being said, Carrie and Francisco have been working with a young girl to do some therapy gymnastics in the gymnasium. So that's good news. It's kind of a start of maybe things to come. And of course, the park has been very busy with lots of people passing through and a lot of use, including we've started high school sports, both baseball, softball, and soccer. And I feel like spring is in the air, but we'll see because we were shoveling snow last week. So if you guys have any questions or comments for me, I'd gladly address those now.
I have a quick question, Dan. What about adult softball and soccer? Are those going to try to move forward in the spring?
Yes, it's kind of tough for us to run our adult leagues, as you know, as they want that competitive games. And right now, all high school is doing are practices. So we can host practices and we can offer them field time, but really what those people pay for and what they want is a league, and they want to compete against each other. So with that being said, we just have to kind of wait to see what happens with COVID, keep in contact with the county, and move forward when we can move forward. So.
Thanks.
Sounds good. Any other questions? Nope. All right, Associate Planner, Economic Development Coordinator, Elaine Kabala.
Good evening, Mayor Mahove and Council. Just 3 items in my update this evening. The first was Council had asked for an update on the Amaka Safe Parking Project that has been discussed at the Nazarene Church, which is just outside of city limits. That went to the Planning Commission, the Inyo County Planning Commission last year. They denied it and it was appealed, and that appeal will be heard before the Inyo County Board of Supervisors next Tuesday, February 16th. During that, the period of time between the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors meeting, Amaka worked with the high school farm and the schools to address their concerns. And they've drafted a new safety plan, and that incorporates the school's request to move the dedicated spaces for the safe parking away from the high school farm. They've added motion sensor lights and exterior cameras as part of their security plan, as well as off-hours monitoring. My other 2 items regard city business. The first is, you may remember that we received a LEAP grant from the state of California to update our housing element, and we put an RFP out for the last month looking for qualified consultants to update the housing element. We received 1 proposal, and so we'll be negotiating that agreement and bringing it before your council shortly. And then I wanted to provide you an update as best I can with the CDBG CARES Act funding that's available now. Your council had, during a public meeting for input, discussed making that available for rental assistance, business assistance, or food assistance. And so I've been doing my due diligence in the feasibility of those 3 applications. And unfortunately, it does not look like we would be able to apply that funding towards business assistance because we can't demonstrate the national objective of serving only low-income recipients for business assistance. And with regards to rental assistance, it sounds like Department of Housing and Community Development will be changing their threshold requirements for that. They're holding a special meeting tomorrow, explaining what may be allowed or may not be allowed for that type of application that, of course, I'll be attending. So I just wanted to give you all an update that we might have to revisit how we can get that funding into our community in the near future. So that's my update. I'm happy to take questions you may have. Thank you.
Thanks for going through that and actually making sure all of those, that what we're applying for, we're set up to actually receive it. Personally, I really hope that we do find a way to use it for rental assistance, because people are definitely struggling out there. Anything we can do to help, and we should definitely be jumping at those opportunities.
I agree.
Any other comments? All right, thanks, Elaine. On to City Administrator Ron Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I really have nothing more to report, but I want to recognize and thank our great staff for all the work that they do, and they keep you up to date on their activities, and I'm just proud of what they're able to accomplish week after week. Thank you.
Yep, a sentiment that is, I'm sure, echoed by every single other council member on here. We do have a great staff, and we definitely appreciate you guys, even if we don't say it every time we see you. I don't think Joe got on, so we'll move on to the County of Inyo update report presented by our 2nd District Supervisor, Jeff Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of the City Council. You've all received my written report. I'm happy to answer any questions or comments on that. Just an update from today. We added, I'm going to forget the number right now, I believe 23 new positive cases and 3 more confirmed deaths, bringing our death total up to 32. And so while these numbers are lower than they were a month or 6 weeks ago, they still remain concerning, and happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
One question I had is, I was looking at the state website on vaccine distribution in all of the counties, and I noticed that Mono County has administered 4,800 doses of a vaccine, whereas Inyo is only at 2,000. Would you care to comment on that? Like
so how the state has been distributing or allocating vaccine towards counties remains a mystery. We really can't figure it out. I've spoken with supervisors and public health people in Mono County and in Inyo County, and they really can't explain that discrepancy. I think if you look at the statewide numbers, it's more that Mono County is an extreme outlier in the percentage of their population that has been vaccinated. Rough numbers right now, Inyo County is about 11% of our population. There are certain counties like Colusa and Tehama County that are 3 and 4% of their population. And Mono County is at 35% or more at this point. So why they have received such large allotments that is a mystery to me, and it's a mystery to the elected officials I've spoken to up there. And conversely, I've talked to the elected officials in Colusa County who are, it's a mystery to them as to why they've received so little. But, the positive news is that Inyo County is at or above the state average and the percentage of our population vaccinated. And we are distributing, getting shots into arms within 7 days of receiving every dose that we get. And we continue to make requests for more dose. Right now, we're getting about 400 doses per week. We have plans and contracts and everything ready to go for mass vaccination clinics. And as soon as we get that large allotment, we are ready to make that happen. And so it's important for everyone to go to the Inyo County vaccination page, and there's a sign-up sheet, and to get your name on that list. There is talk of moving towards a statewide app that you could use on your phone called My Turn. It's been piloted in San Diego and Los Angeles counties. That has not come to us yet. And quite frankly, we're a little bit nervous about that because we have a lot of people who've signed up through the traditional methods, and we're able to handle it through the traditional methods. And we're concerned about what the transition would be for that. But nonetheless, it's important for people to sign up. And right now we're getting 400 doses a week. We could get a large shipment at any time. It's really hard to tell. But yeah, we're efficiently getting all of our allocation into people's arms.
Thanks. And I guess one other question I had for you, Jeff, have you taken a tour of the new county building?
I have not taken a tour of the new county building.
Oh, wanted to hear your feedback on it.
Yeah. I don't have an office in there, so I will be a visitor just like everyone else.
All right.
Jeff, I had a quick question.
Go ahead, Karen.
Are you are not wanting people who are not in the phase we're in to go to the website and sign up, or are you?
So that's actually a question that I have that I was going to ask Public Health tomorrow. My understanding is people in the Tier 1B, it gets confusing, but there's Tier 1B and there's a Part A to that and a Part B to that. Those people should absolutely. So, if you are over the age of 65, or if you're in one of the industry groups, you should absolutely be signed up now. And I will get an answer to you, Karen, on whether everybody should sign up for it beyond that.
Thanks.
Anything else from council?
Yes, Jeff, I have a comment, not necessarily a question, but I found it very concerning. And this comes, same comment, because of I received the same report from people living in Inyo County and in Mono County. There has been several cases where people got infected with COVID, and neither Mono County or Inyo County Public Health contact them for contact tracers. I find that concerning because that's one of the main ways of preventing the spread of, or slowing the spread of COVID. And specifically when Inyo County Public Health is not contacting sick people for contact tracers, it's alarming. We have seen, the numbers, how they have been in the last 3 months. So maybe you can pass that on to Public Health tomorrow.
Okay, I will. If you could actually give me the details of that, that would be more helpful. I've heard anecdotal stories of people saying that, but I know that we have
I know the patients that were isolated with COVID, and Public Health never called them for contact tracers. I cannot tell you the names, but I know them.
Well, again, in order to be actually helpful, it would be good for you to talk to public health about that. I mean, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that information when I talk to my staff, and I know that we've hired a dedicated group of people that have been working 12-hour days, and they've told me that they are on top of contact tracing. And so maybe this is a particular case that got lost between Inyo and Mono counties, but without more specific information, I can't do anything more than say, I have confidence that my staff is, not my staff, Inyo County public health staff is currently has the capacity to do public contact tracing and is doing contact tracing.
We'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Talk to you later. Let's go back real quick to department head reports. Fire Chief Joe Dell. I believe he is with us now. Yes.
Stormed into Destin's office. Not sure what was going on. I had 3 other Zooms that went without any issue earlier today. So the fire department is keeping supporting the COVID-19 pandemic response with the logistics piece, vaccine planning, overall PPE distribution. We're also working on a plan to increase our drivers. As you know, or you may or may not know, the apparatus is large, requires Class B operators or a Class F endorsement. And we've been short on drivers, actually been having some problems getting some engines out of the station. So we really have put a refocus on some driver operator training as we're moving forward. And then we're getting ready for a grant application that I'll talk about here in a little bit. And then and mid-year budget stuff. As soon as Jenny sends some numbers over, we'll start working on some mid-year stuff. We made some money on some deployments, and so I'd like to come back to council here the next month or two with some requests as we brought in some revenue. So,
awesome. Any questions comments from the council? All right, thanks, Joe. Now moving on to the consent calendar. Notice to the public, all matters under consent calendar are considered routine by the city and will be acted on by one motion. Do we have any comments, questions from the council? Any public comments, Robin?
No public comments on the public comment email. I do not see any raised hands. Jenny, can you confirm?
There are no raised hands.
Thank you.
All right, then I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar as given.
Second.
All right, Robin, we have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Kong,
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia,
Yes.
Councilmember Ellis,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz,
Yes.
Mayor Mahovey.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
All right, moving on to new business. The Olancha Cartago Fire Department Federal Emergency Management Agency Assistant to Firefighters Grant Memorandum of Understanding. Although I could have just said the Olancha Cartago Fire Department FEMA Assistant MOU. Go on. And I think this is for you, Joe.
So the fire department is looking at putting together a FEMA grant. Christina's been working real hard on it to purchase SCBAs. The fire department has 45 SCBAs. New ones cost about $7,500 each. So, we're looking at over $400,000 to replace our SCBAs. They're 20 years old. They're starting to run out of parts. The kind of the same old story of the fire station. Things kind of get old and out of date and are expensive to replace. So we're putting in for a regional grant. We're partnering with Alancha because they also have out-of-date SCBA's, and these FEMA grants are more successful on the regional side of things. But in order for us to apply for that grant, we have to have an MOU with Alancha. So tonight we're putting together an MOU to make sure that we can go forward with this. And so I'm only asking for an agreement with you guys for this, for me to execute this MOU.
Okay, I mean, it sounds to me like it's kind of a no-brainer that we need the equipment and it gives us a better chance to get a FEMA grant. So to get FEMA to pay for it, if we have an MOU with another entity and make it a regional thing. So any other, I mean, I got that right? Okay. Any other questions or comments from the council?
Reasonable.
Anything from the public? Robin?
No public comments were made on the public comments email. I do not see any raised hands. Jenny, can you confirm?
There are no raised hands.
Thank you.
All right. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve Chief Dell to sign the MOU as an authorized representative for the Bishop Fire Department and City of Bishop.
I'll second that.
Okay, Robin, call for the vote.
Councilmember Kong,
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia,
Yes.
Councilmember Ellis,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz,
Yes.
Mayor Mahovey.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Joe. All right, second reading and adoption of an ordinance relating to nuisances. Is this going to Ron or Elaine?
Elaine, are you going to handle this?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Good evening again, Council. So at the last meeting held on January 25th, Council held the introduction of a revised nuisance ordinance that would modify the existing nuisance ordinances in the Bishop Municipal Code and incorporate changes to address chronically neglected properties. Since the first reading and the introduction, I have not received any comments regarding the ordinance. So at this time, unless you have additional questions for me, staff would recommend that the council approve the second reading and adoption of the ordinance by title only. Thank you.
I have a quick question regarding the signage that needs to be taken down. Are we going to start contacting property owners with signs, or how are we going to move in that direction with some of the signs that have been up for quite some time?
So I think that the interpretation of this ordinance has largely been that the policy of the City of Bishop with regards to nuisances in the past has been complaint driven. So staff does not proactively go out and look for things. We, respond when there's a complaint from the public. Typically, we requested some sort of written formal complaint, and then we'll go through the process at that time. With regards to outdated signage, I think staff will react with the council's request, however you would like us to do that. I did have a conversation with Ms. Thompson at the Chamber of Commerce earlier today about the facade improvement program that they've run for the past few years to see if there is funding available through that program to maybe help those business owners come into compliance, and provide financial assistance for compliance so that, there's not financial hardship. But again, staff will act at council's request.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense to have it be driven by the public. And I mean, I don't have anything further to add relative to our discussion 2 weeks ago, where we had the first reading. Spoke to some members of the public who were concerned about how it would get implemented, and explained it to them how it would be complaint driven, and that seemed to assuage their concerns. So any other comments, questions from the council?
I also had a few conversations with people who were concerned about things like they wanted to take a month break from renting the house they rent, and how is this nuisance ordinance going to impact that? And so yeah, I explained how it all was working and what its purpose was, and everyone seemed okay with it once I explained it.
Robin, any comments from the public?
No public comments have been made on our public comment email, and I do not see any raised hands. Jenny, can you please confirm?
There are no raised hands.
Can I get a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the second reading and adoption of the proposed ordinance relating to nuisances by title only.
Second that.
All right, Robin, call for the vote.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bishop, State of California, adopting Chapter 8.06 nuisances to Title 8 Health and Safety of the Bishop Municipal Code and repealing Section 8.28.120, accumulation on private property deemed a nuisance abatement. Councilmember Kong.
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia.
Yes.
Councilmember Ellis.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz.
Yes.
Mayor Mahovey.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
All right, moving right along. Item C, we are going to have a discussion relating to a vacant building registry ordinance. And this is just a discussion item with no actual action. But I think this one is getting passed on to Ms. Kabala.
Good evening again. So again, at the last meeting on January 25th, Council requested that staff return with an item to discuss a vacant building registry ordinance. I've presented the background of that conversation in the staff report this evening, but I'll do a brief summary again. This is a conversation that the council has been having starting since 2017. We've had many public meetings specifically focusing on the issues of vacant buildings, what some of the underlying problems of chronically vacant buildings are in the city of Bishop, and what potential solutions could look like. And those have been focused public workshops, but also council meetings. And we've discussed several strategies around vacant buildings, which have included expanding a facade improvement program to support reuse, investing in wayfinding to direct people to available parking options in downtown Bishop, identifying different incentive programs for reuse, developing standards for maintenance, allowing for mixed use zoning, supporting venture capital and startups, developing a downtown improvement plan, and working with LADWP and Caltrans to implement some of their long-term goals around DWP real estate divestitures and working with Caltrans on downtown improvements. And in that period of time, we actually have made a lot of progress on some of these goals. As you know, we've put a substantial effort into developing a specific plan and mixed use overlay in the last year to increase the flexibility of zoning for reuse and to identify opportunities for some of those improvements for making a more pedestrian friendly environment and identifying parking options. We also have partnered with the county in the last year to identify a site and establish a small business development center that will provide assistance for potential entrepreneurs, but also for existing businesses to get free business consulting to support our small businesses. So, with that history provided on past efforts towards addressing vacant buildings, the conversation this evening is about if council would like staff to proceed with developing a vacant building registry. Typically, a vacant building registry would include provisions that provide a fee schedule for vacant buildings, maintenance requirements, direct outreach to the property owners, and different provisions to try and encourage temporary uses or window treatments, or maintain aesthetic enhancements and safety enhancements. So with that, that is my summary of the conversations we've had in the past. Generally what a vacant building registry would include. And so I invite the council to discuss if there's interest in moving forward with a vacant building registry ordinance at this time. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. Yeah, that was, it's every once in a while, it's good to hear back on the progress that we have been making over the last few years on many of these topics. And I think, yeah, everything is just a little piece of the puzzle. And as we start implementing all of these little pieces, it helps up to get a clearer picture of town. So with regards to vacant property registry, this is just a discussion item. What do the council think?
Well, I guess what I would want to know from other council members is our goal. Are we, looking to not have any vacant buildings ever? Are we looking at specific buildings that have been vacant for over 10, 15 years? Like, what's the overarching goal? I know since 2017, there's been quite a bit of turnover in some of the vacancies that we've seen with the sale of buildings or some different businesses going in. So, I would like to see personally, in regards to vacancy, maybe us direct staff to come up with something we can do with the Kmart building. Like, I looked at that as like a glaring, but not have an ordinance with that, but more maybe work with our attorney and see if there's things we can do for that specific building, but not an ordinance. But other than that, I think I just would like to see what the goal would be to achieve out of this ordinance.
I mean, I think that's a really good point. And let's just be clear that any discussion that we're having here isn't related to individual properties. But yeah, let's keep it as a discussion on the town as a whole and the inventory there. So my take on that is that we have seen chronic vacancies. And in many cases, building owners have many reasons to keep them vacant. Some of them keep them vacant because they can claim it as a tax write-off by having a high rent that they put on the numbers and then just claim that as a write-off. Recently, I was in conversations with an investor in town who reached out to, on order, 24 property owners who had their buildings vacant and were not willing to turn it over. In some cases, the responses they had were, and I quote, "Oh, it would be too much paperwork to sell a property." And so, I mean, yes, we have had a few buildings have some turnover, but as we still see walking down walking down Main Street. I mean, there's still quite a few that are vacant and have chronically been vacant. And I don't know. So I guess I would view it as a goal is what can we do to disincentivize keeping those buildings empty, and to kind of encourage the sort of turnover that we've seen that has been pretty few and far between. And honestly, like a lot of the turnover I think has happened from us starting to have these discussions. So that's kind of what I think about it.
Mr. Mayor, I've been on the council a long time. I've seen this come before us. I've been at the forefront of a lot of this discussion in the past. I think the ordinance that we're getting ready to pass, we just did the second reading on, addresses one of the underlying issues of the vacant buildings, where in the past you could have a vacant building and who cares? There's nothing we can do about it. It could be what it could be. I do see change on the horizon. I think Karen touches on it. Economically, Bishop is changing. It's becoming a different market than it was when this was brought before us 4 years ago. So I see that some of this is going away. I mean, empty buildings that, like you said, chronically empty have now been sold and moved on to investors. I think there's money coming here. It's just a matter of figuring out how to get it, get the parts connected. Yes, Stephen, you and I had a great discussion, and it was frustrating to hear no from a guy who is saying, here's some cash. That's hard to hear as an elected official, that this is what's happening within our community. But I want to be real careful with this, that we're not punishing people. I'd rather see us spend the same time and money finding the answers to get that out of people's hands or get it into a usable position, instead of saying, because if they can take a tax write-off on rent, they can take a tax write-off on a fee they just paid. Hey, we lost money at this business because we had to pay $20,000 in fines this year. So I just want to be careful that it's directed right, but I think we need to look at how do we dangle a carrot instead of snapping a whip. Let's figure out the answer on that side of it. We'll talk more on future agenda items on this one.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to chime in if I could. I'm of dual opinion on this. I have absolutely no problem incentivizing them to sell. That I agree with you, Mr. Mayor, that there are a couple of properties that were not on the market. And then when we started to talk about this, the owner said, oh, well, maybe we should think about this. And I have to say, I am very nervous about the upcoming, sooner than I expected, empty buildings that the county is going to vacate, in the neighborhood of 5 or 6 buildings that will be 7. Okay. That will be completely empty here in another couple of months. Some of which in my 20 plus years in town have always been the same agency. My concern about those is not only are those buildings going to be vacant for the first time in a decade or more, but they're also, many of them are in very poor shape. And so the idea that I kind of think of it like a kick in the pants, that if it's too much work to sell when you have a cash offer on the table, I can't imagine that these people are going to want to deal with whatever they have to deal with for fines of some sort. Now, that being said, I am equally as concerned with the overtaxing nature of now a second ordinance on our limited staff and their time. There are lots of super important things that are going on with our city staff, and I'm not sure they can handle another one. So I guess my thought on this is if we could look at this in two tracks, get staff to start talking about a vacant building ordinance, as well as direct staff to start talking about costs for sharing an enforcement officer with the county. They finally have one on board, and knowing what that cost would be for us if we were to share might lead some of this discussion as to what the fines might be.
Let's just be clear. We're not talking about fines. We're talking about fees to register the building.
Okay. Fees to register the building.
And the fees to register the building would definitely, yes, that is precisely what would end up paying for the enforcement of this type of thing. Yeah, and the maintenance.
But I think we do definitely need to see if we, rather than recreate the wheel, it took them so long to find someone for the county, that if we could figure out a way to make that share between the two of us and know what that number is up front before we necessarily go on.
Sure. I mean, I think that's definitely homework to be done. I mean, personally, I think from the items that are presented here on what is typically included in such an ordinance, I would definitely say that yes, there should be they should be fees that should be scalable by time and size of the property, so like square footage. That there should definitely be maintenance requirements and prohibition of storage, especially during our when we have such a housing shortage. I know some cities do have the contact information of the building owner made publicly available. I think I would even be okay with that. I would not be comfortable with having city staff spend their time making connections between potentially interested parties and the building owners. I think city staff has better things to do with their time. And I mean, I would personally love to maybe have to require temporary use for either like art or promotion of a nonprofit in the area. Those are kind of, if we were to go through, that's what I would outline in such an ordinance. Jose, did you add any thoughts?
Mixed thoughts about the issue. I'd like to see no empty buildings. But when there are no potential entrepreneurs or business to be developed, who's going to rent those empty buildings? Not every day we get 1 or 5 investors want to buy a building in Bishop. Incentivizing by high registration fees, I don't think that's the way of going. Having a registry, it will help. I think homeowners should have the moral responsibility to maintain those buildings clean, with a fresh coat of paint, at least on the outside, as they become empty, so that they look a little bit attractive to tenants or potential buyers. But I don't see many building owners willing to do that, to spend that money, even when they could write it off. About 3 or 4 years ago, we had a large attended workshop with the community, and many landlords were in attendance, and there was a lot of unhappy people at that meeting. Elaine may remember that. I'm talking about the meeting held at the Elks Lodge. We need housing. We know that. Everybody knows that. But are some of these building owners in these empty buildings coming up, are they willing to renovate and have a commercial residential units available? It's a tough issue. I mean, we can say, yes, let's have that ordinance. We can approve it. We can enforce it. But is that going to do any good to our community?
I mean, I think it will, because I think it will put it'll let the building owners who have kept their properties vacant without doing much, like I think it will incentivize them to either look into doing something with it, or if not, try to unload it.
We can try.
That's kind of, yeah, where I view this, because obviously the status quo is not doing anything.
No, it's not.
And so
I don't know. I see it a little differently. Like I mean, I agree that we want to see more. I don't see that we have this like crazy vacant building problem. I mean, since 2017 or even before, you know, it's the natural course of things moving, and I think that more people, Bishop is more on the radar. I think that these vacancies that are going to happen with the county will serve more as opportunities, especially since we're doing this mixed use zoning. And I think that we really should poise ourselves of looking at infrastructure that makes us more walkable, makes us more marketable for people to invest, versus kind of, for lack of better verb, like ordinancing our way to the solution. I'm just not, you know, there's many ways to skin a cat, and maybe this one will work. I just don't, to me, I would prefer us spending our time incentivizing people to invest in our community rather than penalizing people for not investing.
So what do you tell the investor who reached out to all the building owners and was told, I mean,
that's, you know, that's a
like,
one.
what do you tell them?
I mean, I don't know. We've had that one man who is on his second property now, buying and investing in Bishop. And Elena told me he had this whole presentation to his gentlemen's club on why Bishop is the next place to invest, you know? So I think it's just that one scenario, you know, doesn't dictate a whole ordinance. That's just my 2 cents. I just don't think it'll get us to where we want to be any faster than focusing on what we can do to incentivize people to invest.
I guess that's my question. What would you suggest then to incentivize that we're not already doing?
I think what we're doing is great, and I guess you might think it's just not fast enough. You know, I think we're doing what needs to be done, and just the tons of public outreach, it just takes time. I mean, we've been working on this rezoning for 2-3 years. I mean, it's just time. It just takes time. You know, I'm not against trying to figure out ways to incentivize people to redevelop their business. But I mean, on one hand, we're asking DWP to release land so we can develop it when we already have land, that people don't want to develop on. So I'm not totally convinced this is going to get us to the place that we want to be faster than doing what we're doing. Maybe putting more money into planning, maybe hiring another planner. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I just don't think this is the direction that gets us to where we want to be. I think we're going to anger more property owners than kind of work with them and convince them that maybe they want to sell. It just, to me, it doesn't seem like the solution.
I mean, honestly, I'm not too concerned about angering these particular property owners because none of them actually live in the area. And I would love to see those buildings owned by people in our community who have a vested interest in seeing our community be vibrant as opposed to absentee property owners who don't have that incentive and for whom Bishop isn't even a thought.
I guess I can only really think of two to me that are like egregious offenders. So I don't think it's like this massive problem. I mean, there's just two that maybe I'm wrong, but there's like two on the top of my head that I'm like, oh yeah, those are really, they're offenders. But other than that, I see, this is very anecdotal, things moving just from my, my worldview.
So I'm going to jump in and just say that, one of the things in the part of the analysis and discussion that Elaine provided us with us, so thank you, Elaine, is the idea of maintenance requirements. So there are several properties that I know of that people wanted to move into, but in order to purchase them and then they couldn't afford both to purchase them and to refab them, that they're in such poor shape. And so some of that, the idea that we could require them to keep it in a certain condition so it is available and is ready to move in ready. And I'm not talking about perfect, but not falling down ceilings. That seems to me that's super important. It's sort of the next step to the nuisance thing we just did. It's just one step further to make sure that it is not a fire hazard, but also something that could feasibly be moved into without having to be totally demolished. And that's important because I know there are places out there that are, wonderful locations and wonderful spaces, but require so much work that everyone who's looked at them have said, no, we're not willing to do that. And you're right, this might not be the solution completely, but it could be one little piece of the pie with all the other pieces you're talking about.
Jim?
Stephen, just to move this along, could we, would it be okay if staff brought us a sample ordinance and brought us what would, I think we've all kind of spoke our piece, and there could be they could pull some ideas out of here to see what a sample ordinance would look like with some fee structures, with all the different components that we basically been for, been against, been talking about, so we can discuss it in 2 more weeks or a month from now and see what it looks like. So we have some pinpoints, some places to yes, no, this would work, this would not work. I think that might be our next option.
I'd be happy to hold some sample ordinances. And I think there's been some direction this evening and during the discussion around particular points that the council would be interested in seeing. And I would include in that some due diligence on what it would cost to enforce such an ordinance.
Yeah, because I think, Elaine, I think it's what helped us on our last ordinance that we're on our second reading, is you brought the one out of Mammoth, we fine-tuned it, it gave us a baseline to start with, a blueprint, and then we could work from there. So I thought it was a we can do something similar with this, then let's see where it goes.
I appreciate the direction. Thank you.
Okay with them. Jose, you had your hand up.
I did. And I'm not muted. I had to check. I guess I wanted to ask Karen Kong to see if I can understand your point, because I guess it's interesting. So Karen, were you talking about requiring building owners to bring up to code or to do any necessary upgrades or maintenance to their buildings as soon as they become empty before they can be rented or sold?
So one of the analysis of that Elaine provided for us talks about building maintenance requirements can be established to ensure buildings are maintained to rentable standard, require any building damage constituting a public safety hazard to be immediately repaired, discourage the appearance of blight by requiring aesthetic standards be met. And so, yeah, I think that part of the problem is that some of these buildings are not in rentable. I mean, I don't know if any of you have ever been in that Grove Street building that HHS is going to vacate, but it is not anyone's going to want to be in there that's doing anything other than paperwork and service. And so, yeah, I think that things need to be in rentable shape.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that was a good discussion. Elaine, I think you have some direction.
It may take us a few weeks to get to this point because Elaine's plate is very, very full at the moment.
For sure. Yeah. Okay, then shall we go on to another discussion relating to enhanced pedestrian crossing on Main Street and West Line Street in Bishop. Destin, were you going to kick this off?
Yeah, sure. Good evening again, Council. So over the past several decades, Main Street and East Line Street have seen numerous changes in pedestrian crossings. Probably most recently was the removal of many of them on Main Street. It's been this topic of discussion for a long time, really, is where did they go? Why did they go? You know, there wasn't a lot of public input put in at the time. Caltrans did their studies, and you know, it's not arguing with them, but yes, they did their due diligence of why they needed to be removed. Currently, Caltrans is in the process of seeking public input on these very issues. Again, not only pedestrian crossings, but bike paths and bike lanes and all that kind of stuff. And so it's a great opportunity, I think, for us as a city and our council bill to discuss what we think is important on Main Street and Line Street. I will add that Caltrans has a project that's slated to start in late March to add enhanced pedestrian crossings at East Elm near Giggle Springs there at that intersection. And I included a couple of photos provided by Caltrans of what, and it was kind of funny. It's right in the middle of our water line project on Elm Street. So don't mind all the cones out there. They won't be part of it. And then the second location would be near the post office at Edward Street right there. These would be signals that you would, pedestrian could walk up to, push the button, and then the light on the mast arms that you see would actually start blinking yellow when there is a pedestrian to cross, and then turn red, and the traffic would be expected to stop for those pedestrians there. That's a very, you know, extreme and a costly option that's out there, but they're going to do it at those two spots. I think we've identified several spots, and I'll let you guys, you know, make those recommendations. But McIver Street, East Pine, where there used to be one by the Looney Bean there, that was removed. All the way down at Clark Street, that there's still one there, but that's a dangerous one. There's some different, none of our intersections are very aligned. So that one becomes people walking across and you're making a right-hand turn off of Lagoon Street and onto Main, and you don't see a pedestrian right there that took off. So there's enhanced things, such as just simple, the diagonal sign with a crosswalk symbol on it. And when the person pushes the button to cross, it lights that signal up. There's the lights that are in the street that they grind down, they're inset so they could deal with snow plows, and the top of the lights flush with the pavement grade, and they light up across the street. And you probably may have seen them in other areas, but we have this opportunity right now to let Caltrans know what we think is important in our street. And actually there's one more day left where the government agencies can give input to the survey that Caltrans has out right now. And anything that you all bring tonight, I could definitely get those comments in tomorrow. And then, as I noted in here, there's also a public survey that's starting right now too. That's on the last page. There's a link to it here. Anybody can go onto the website and see our council agenda and click right on and move over and go look at that and participate in the survey. So I mostly am looking, and the other thing is too, is I think it's, we also have a great opportunity, and this was brought up by Mayor Mahovey, to give input to the LTC, because it's not just those, but the speed feedback signs that you see up and down the entire valley and up into Mono County, that this is your speed. We definitely know that the south end and the north ends of town, people come in pretty hot at times, and I think those are good viable reminders. And I think we should ask Caltrans, and again, not throwing them under the bus, but we asked for those several years ago too, actually. And they said, oh yeah, you guys are more than welcome to put them in at a cost of like $40,000, which we just don't have in our budget, but obviously they do. And I think we should start asking for them. But I'll turn it over to Mayor Mahovey. I know you have some comments to this too.
I mean, yeah, this is, that was a great summary. Effectively, so Caltrans is looking for input on their ADP, which actually where they set their maintenance project, but the maintenance projects in the future. And there are 3 different entities that contribute in their decision-making. One of them is the public. So we invite anybody in the public to go to this survey, as Destin said, and put in input. One is entities, like government entities. And so I think that if we could come up with a unified vision of what it is that we would want, that would carry a lot of weight. And then the third one is internally within Caltrans. So, but I know a lot of public have complained about or have identified spots on Main Street. Personally, I think Destin hit on the main components that I would be advocating for, which would be crosswalk indicator on Main and MacIver, Main and Clark, Main and Pine, or Academy. I don't know which one would be better there since they're so close to each other. And probably Academy over Pine, I would think. And then speed indicators at the entrances of town. And so I'm just curious, what do you guys think on your wish list for pedestrian safety on Main Street and Line? This is our chance.
Mayor Mahovey, this has been on my radar for a kabillion years, and yeah, I think you guys nailed it, Destin. I think MacIver and Main, it's not a very well lit area. We have a little hotel row there, people wandering around. Add a fair time event to that, and how we don't have more people squished there, I still have no idea. So I know that it's good that Caltrans is willing to take on this discussion again. I know in 2017, the Edwards and West Line Street was supposed to be done. The Elm and Main Street one was supposed to be done, and this is all kind of just keeps getting lost. So I would like to have this discussion. I think the crosswalks they're presenting with the red lights are great. I know in the past the cost on those, it's Caltrans money, but they are $1 billion. Are there cheaper ways? Can we say, you know, the LED lights on the sign? But I think along with this too, Mayor Mahovey and Destin and council, the ordinance that we're looking at, the nuisance ordinance, I know Elaine has had conversations in the past about a signage ordinance. Some of this, if we can clean up Main Street, get rid of some of the just stimulation, I think what we do put in would be more effective. So I think we need to make sure that, you know, it's great that we're going to do some traffic control, but at the same time, it has to go hand in hand with some visualization cleanup to get people focused on one thing. And then the big one, Stephen and Destin, yeah, every town in Owens Valley has radar little detectors right outside their town. Bishop has 2 out in the middle of nowhere out there. But coming into town, if nothing else, at least let these people speeding calibrate their speedometers to put them in so that we're in like every other town. But I would like to see something in place, if nothing else, to remind people if it stops 20% of the people speeding through our town, that's 20% safer than it was the day before we put them in. Josh, what's our police department's take on not enforcement so much, but the safety issues going on with our crosswalks?
We've been fortunate. We haven't had a lot of issues as far as actual collisions. I actually watched one person, I was just downtown walking one night. Granted, she was on her phone, and a car came and the mirror clipped her arm. And it had to be by a hair because she barely felt it, but had that split second been quicker. But we focus on it at times because there are those times of the year we have a lot of pedestrian traffic, and we all watch as people fly by. So it is definitely an issue. It's definitely a safety concern, and anything to help mitigate those problems is definitely something we need. Because enforcement's great when you're there, but obviously law enforcement's not there 24/7. So, and that's kind of my past experience with it. In a community where you're not around a bunch of tourists and people traveling through, the community learns that, hey, the police are watching that, and it corrects the behavior. Most of our traffic is people from out of the area, so it's not a long-term solution with enforcement. So something with, like this, signage, the flashing lights, that's going to be more beneficial than just law enforcement sitting there writing some tickets. So.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I definitely take your point, Jim, about visual clutter on Main Street. And so, I mean, that's why I would almost advocate if we can to ask for the lights in the pavement. Like you were describing earlier, Destin, we may as well ask for it in that regard, because I think that would be a lot nicer.
And Stephen, if they're open to that idea, I think it's great. You see them at go to Reno at the airport in Reno. They're there. I've been to quite a few different cities that those are in the street. In the past, I know when I had this discussions with Caltrans, they threw everything in the world. Oh no, a snowplow will hit them and ruin them. But I've talked to cities that they snow a lot more than the 1 to 2 inches per year that we get, and they're fine.
Dustin, quick question. Do we plow Main Street? Do we have an agreement with Caltrans, or no? They do it.
No, we do not do Main Street or West Line.
Mm-hmm.
Just a sweeping contract.
Mm-hmm. Sweeping. Okay.
So
I guess for me, Mayor Mahovey, if I could pick my top 2, I would definitely say MacGyver there and Clark Street. That had, as someone who walks her dogs every day, that Clark Street one is probably one of the most dangerous ones there is, because the people going south have just started to speed up from the line, the one big one at Main and Line, and the people coming in haven't slowed down enough to be paying attention. And so it's actually, I always feel it's actually safer when there are tons of us around, like because then there's a bunch of crowd walking in there. You're not just the only one. I love the idea of the light up dots as well. I think that would be, if we could get two big things and the light up dots everywhere else, that would be the perfect world for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I agree with you that Academy is an issue, especially in the morning, because that's a lot of school children cross there to get to the high school and such. But I think that the dots would probably be okay there. And those other two, the people are speeding so much that they, especially the one on MacGyver, they can't see a thing. They just whipped around that corner and then people are crossing. So that's my opinion. Those would be my top ones. Those would be the three things I would recommend if it was up to me.
Yeah, I would agree completely with you, Karen. I think that, us being East Siders, that Clark Street, it's scary. And MacGyver is another one that also is just, it feels dark and you just don't notice that there's a crosswalk there. I don't know if this would be the appropriate time to talk to Caltrans, but we did like a consultation with them once about where they would allow more trees to be planted. And I know that trees tend to have cars slow down a little bit because it just looks more, residential or whatever. But in some of those areas, especially on the south end of town, if they could maybe even plant a tree by some of these crosswalks, it would offer some shade. And maybe when people see it, it would help slow things down.
Do we have any comments from the public?
Not see any public comments. And I do not see any waved hands.
There are no
Jenny?
raised hands.
Thank you.
And Destin, you might, and I don't even know if they could use this or not, but maybe Caltrans could access some safe route to schools money to help with this, to get the East Side kids across to the West Side to go to school, that they might be able to access some of that money to offset some of this from their regular budget.
So to be clear, they have a lot of money as part of these programs. But the other thing that I was going to say is one of the criteria in ranking of their projects internally is social equity and safety. And I think basically every single one of our crosswalks that would connect the east side of town to the schools definitely fall under that. And so I would definitely, as we're submitting these comments, throw a statement to that regard on there. But yeah, I mean, I think, Destin, do you have a pretty clear picture of what council is in support of?
Yeah, I think I do. So I will suggest enhancements at the intersections of Main and MacIver, Main and Academy, Main and Clark, and mostly for lack of better words, the illuminated dots at the crosswalks. Speed feedback signs at both ends of town, mostly near the Meal Days office, and then probably somewhere, maybe even around the Caltrans offices there as they come into town. I feel like that's it seems like if we go down to like Sierra Saddlery or any further, they're still too far away from, and it's still a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit zone down there. So somewhere closer to where the 25 changes from 35 to 25.
That'd be great, yeah.
So, and then also comment to trees, possibility of trees at those where they will fit. And then I'll also bring up the benefits to, as Bishop being at the east side is a disadvantaged community on that side. Those always like to score points there. And safe routes to schools is also.
Safe routes to schools, yep.
Yep, and we also have a clear safe routes to school path that the school and the city and Caltrans has worked on over the years. So I will do that tomorrow, comment to that, and then hopefully we can all individually do that as well as public comment too. Thank you for the direction, Council.
Cool. If there's nothing else from council or the public, oh, there is a raised hand.
Yes, we have one raised hand. I just allowed him to talk.
You have that name?
Nick Laura.
Hello, you guys see me?
We see a fish, yes, but we can hear you.
That's a fish. Just by talking with people around town, I live on the east side of Town Crossing. I cross an academy almost every day just to go get coffee. And it's definitely tricky getting across there. It's a matter of time, not when, it's if, or if not when. And I know that the majority of school kids are using that as a crosswalk to get from the east side to the west side. So I think you'll have overwhelming public support. I don't think it will be like politically divisive. So I have done a little bit of research on the embedded lights. And if we can get that done, I think people really appreciate the work. That's all.
Cool. Thanks for your comment, Nick. Yeah, I think that's another reason to focus on Academy as opposed to Pine, which I think is fine. All right. There's nothing else. We can move on to future agenda items. And I'm just going to go down the windows as they are on my screen. So, Mr. Garcia, future agenda items that aren't already on the list?
Nothing from me at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ellis.
Good evening. I have two. First one, I know Karen was involved in this. Karen Schwartz, not double K. The broadband and the digital 395, I know on social media and then just from people in the public have been kind of beating me up on this one a little bit. Our current internet provider is kind of lacking in service and quality. And I know that a lot of the discussions we've had tonight, and especially even just in the past year or two, have been about moving Bishop forward and getting us to that next level. And this is one of our key points that we're kind of behind the curve on, and we're still behind the curve. So I'd like to have a discussion on this to find out where are we at. We are basically landlocked by one provider up here for the most part, who keeps raising rates, services questionable, and the public is starting to kind of say enough's enough. So I think it's our job as elected officials to see if we can help alleviate some of that, or at least ask the questions and get the ball rolling. And then second topic I'd like to see us discuss ties directly into what we're talking about, and that's the hiring of a full-time planner. I know we've talked about it in the past. It's come up and it's gone away. But not to question Elaine, doing a great job, doing an amazing job, but there's only so much Elaine and so many balls we can juggle with one person. I'd like to see us to help enhance the economic possibilities, to find more grants, find investors. I think they're out there. It's just a matter of, do we have enough time to go out and search for them, to work with them, work with the landlords, work with the investors. And along with that, I think that the city, the five of us, as you get these empty buildings that are coming up, I'd like to have a discussion on making strategic investments. We have some Measure P money coming up in the future. There is money out there. Make investments in some of these properties and start turning these properties. There's cities out there doing it. I'd like to have a discussion, see if the council would be willing to, what are the possibilities on those two items. So that's it for me.
Okay, Robin, you made a note of that. All right, double K.
I have no topics for the next meeting. I think we're good with the list we have, and I really like a couple of gyms. So
Okay, and Karen,
I have
KS?
nothing.
Okay, I don't have anything to add either. Council and committee reports. Let's go backwards. KS.
Okay. On January 28th, I attended the ESSRP Partners meeting, and we discussed the framework by which we would select and prioritize projects. And the things we kind of discussed were, obviously desirability would be one, but then also feasibility, fundability, and we talked about some like guiding principles. And many of the land managers that were on that call focused on their capacity within their staff and their organizations to be able to maintain and monitor some of these projects. So it was a good kind of high level conversation on how we would talk about some of these projects getting funded down the pipeline. And then on February 1st, I attended just the regular monthly ESSRP meeting. And we discussed that the SCOG is applying for a grant that's due on February 19th, which all the entities approved for the Sustainable Recreation and Ecosystem Management Program. And then we just received an update on the Innovative Finance for National Forest Grant Program. And there's some tentative areas for campground improvements all up and down the Eastern Sierra Corridor. And then Caltrans gave an update, and they are releasing a sustainable transportation planning grant. And that next one is due very soon, but they're going to be continually releasing these grants. And then there is a dispersed camping summit coming up on Thursday that I was going to attend, but then I found out last night that Cosmo doesn't have school on Thursday. So I will not be able to attend. I know I forwarded the information to Stephen and Karen, so hopefully we'll have someone from Bishop that can go, but I unfortunately, I'm gonna probably be at Keogh's or something, but so I won't be at that one. Is anyone else going to plan on attending? Because I think we should have some representation from Bishop for sure.
I
No?
was going to try to make it. The dispersed camping one, right?
Right, on Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's at 2 o'clock. Yeah.
Yes. And then on Monday, a week from today, ESSA is having an electric bus demo, which is really cool. And I won't be able to attend that, but I think Jim said he will be able to attend that. So that'll be great. And then on Friday, Jim and I have our long morning of ESTA and SCOG. So that's what's happening in my world.
All right. Karen Kong.
I'm still knee deep in my trying to figure out how everything runs. I had a lovely hour-and-a-half meeting with Elaine last week in which we talked about a lot of things, and she and I discussed the old Kmart building on Main Street and how the two places next to that are going to be vacant here shortly when probation and health and human services move. And I volunteered, and hopefully I can get Jim to help me on this. I volunteered to do some council person discussions with the Wounded Warrior people to see if maybe having some pressure other than just a staff member, as wonderful as she is, might get them moving along and thinking about us as a possible location for their building now that they have none in Bishop. I'm concerned that if we don't step up right now to get that to, kind of start putting some pressure on for that to happen, that they will find another location before we get to doing that. And so, Jim, if you and I want to talk about that a little bit and see if we can maybe reach out together and separately. So that's on my list. And then I had Aaron Steinwan from the water department, and I had a 2-hour Friday afternoon Zoom session in which he filled me in on everything that I think I need to know for Owens Valley Groundwater Authority. And so I'll be attending that meeting here on Thursday, which is why I can't go to the dispersed camping one, because our groundwater meeting is at the same time. That's it.
All right, that sounds great. Mr. Ellis.
Stephen, you're going to go to the dispersed camping?
Yeah.
Okay, because I saw
I'll
Josh
make
raise
it.
his
I'll
hand.
make an appearance for sure.
Josh, you're
Yeah.
going?
Oh, Josh can come too. That's fine.
Yeah, Karen kind of nailed it for me. I have ESTA and SCOG meeting coming up, and then I'll be doing the electric bus and see what that's about. And I'll bring us back a report on that and tell us tell the council kind of what I see and where it's going to go and what the future looks like as far as electric buses in the valley.
Cool. Mr. Garcia, committee reports or any updates?
A short one. The January meeting for LTC was canceled. So our next meeting is February 17. Be reporting on that probably during the next council meeting.
Sounds good. On my end, there were no committees that I attended. I did start my new job, so that's been a lot of trying to catch up and learn new things. And if we have nothing else, we will now adjourn the open session until Monday, February 22nd, 2021. And us on the council will join the closed session link so that we can wrap that up.
So council, just briefly, you'll use the same link that you used to access when we met at 5 p.m. So my link will still be active. So just go back to that same link that you accessed at 5 p.m. I'll see you all on the other side.
And married folks, Valentine's Day is coming up. Don't get yourself in trouble. Remember that.
Thanks, Jim. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. As city clerk, I'd like to report out from closed session. Closed session adjourned at 8:30 p.m. As to both closed session items 4A and 4B, direction was provided to staff. Thank you.